We have had a great first hour. It's crazy how many speakers we've had and how much information and wisdom. So we have one more speaker and then we're going to take a quick 5-minute break. But before we take that break, I am so excited to introduce to you Lurein Perera. Lurein is a startup and nonprofit founder, a visionary, a full-time student, and a dear friend of mine. So I just want to welcome Lurein to the stage, and we are so excited to hear what you have to say. So welcome, Lurein.
Hi. Hi, everyone. We got a timer going. Awesome. My name's Lurein. So I'm a college student. I study at BC. I'm a senior. If you can't tell by my roommate's unmade bed right over there, I'm in my dorm room right now. I'm a founder at GiveCard, which is a fintech nonprofit that issues debit cards and financial services to people facing homelessness. And I'm the head of product right now at Sidebar, which is dubbed as the fastest workplace communication platform ever made. As the head of product, I can say it's not the fastest just yet, but that's how we brand, so we'll get there. I'm also a serial failure, and I'll get into that in a little bit. This is me as a little kid. That's when I peaked. That's my mom over there. And I was born and raised in Malawi, a small country in Southeast Africa. They call it the warm heart of Africa because everyone's so loving and friendly and nice. Also, I use emojis a lot in my slides, so sorry in advance. Malawi didn't have much electricity growing up. Every day for 4 to 6 hours, we'd have power cuts. And so going into tech was just something I'd never envisioned. It also had ridiculously slow internet. Sorry, I said snow because it's just snowing outside right now in Boston, but really slow internet. And so tech was, again, just never, or entrepreneurship, never things I thought about before coming to the US. I came to the US to study at BC at Boston College. It's a really nice picture that makes it look really nice, but I love it here. And this is where I kind of like found myself with entrepreneurship. So you're probably sitting there and wondering, like, why is this random dude from Africa joining my Zoom webinar and telling me his life story? Well, there's two reasons. The first is because I was asked to talk about embracing failure. Specifically, specifically, I was asked to say, don't fear failure, seek it. Yeehaw. And I think I'm rather qualified to talk about failure, given that I have 4 failed companies at the age of 21. I spent the last 3 years running a company without making a single dollar in revenue. That's one of the for-profit companies, not the nonprofit. I also can't crack an egg without making a mess, which isn't ideal. But the second reason why I wanted to talk today is far more important to me, because in this Prepare to Launch series, you heard from some incredible people working at the most impressive companies, like places where, given half the chance, I would leap to in a heartbeat. But my plea to you is that you take in all that you hear today and you just consider the possibility that maybe you start something new, that you build your own company, that you strap yourselves to a rocket and take failure and doubt and fear head on. That is my plea to you. So over the next few minutes, as I tell you my failure-ridden story of how I started GiveCard, I hope that somehow in all its convolution, it leaves you with some threads to unravel that lead you to making something great. This slide gets me. Sorry about this one. So on to the GiveCard story, I guess. Okay. So in October 2018, I went out to dinner with my roommates and we got Korean fried chicken and it was fantastic. And one of my roommates got the bill and he said, I'll take the bill and you guys just Venmo me back. And it was so easy. I pulled out my phone, came up with a funny like caption, and I paid him through my phone. It was that easy. And as we were walking back and waiting for the train to get back to BC, we noticed the train was running late and it was a really chilly night in October. And a person facing homelessness was there by the train station and he started talking to us. And naturally, we had a good conversation that had nothing to do with anything. It was just sports and random chats like that. But it was a really good conversation. And as we saw the train coming in the distance, he basically produced like a small styrofoam cup and he said something along the lines of, hey, I'm looking for a new winter coat. And if you have a few dollars to spare, it would really go a long way. And genuinely, we had such good rapport and he was such a nice person that I absolutely wanted to help him. And so I pulled out my wallet and I rifled through it and I just had no cash in it. And I looked to my roommates and they pulled out their wallets and they did the same and they weren't carrying cash either. And so I said, "I'm sorry, I don't have cash on me." And he said, "Don't worry, it happens all the time." And that was kind of like the reckoning moment for me. And it's like in a society going increasingly cashless, people who rely entirely on cash, many of whom are homeless, are becoming increasingly marginalized. And so Gift Card was about solving this. And I was just so fascinated with how can we make this one specific person's life easier. And I went back to my dorm room, and for the next few days, I was just thinking and thinking and thinking. It completely encapsulated me. And eventually, I came up with an idea. It was really simple. What if we give him some sort of debit card and then produce some system where if I were to bump into him again, I could go to a website or I could scan a QR code and I could send money directly from my phone, just like Venmo, to that debit card of his, and he can go spend it. He doesn't need a phone to do it, so which alleviates the whole Venmo issue. And maybe we throw in some security so that like he can only spend it on certain things, or like we can incentivize certain spending. And that was just kind of the idea. It was super simple. It's like, how can I give to this one person? And so to get myself to commit to this, I'm someone who sporadically starts and stops things a lot. And so I really needed something to get me to commit. And for context, I was working a minimum wage student job where I cleaned an event space at BC, and I had about $400 total in my bank account. And I said, all right, like I have got to tie myself down to this idea. And so what I did is I spent 200, so over half or just about half of the money I had in my bank account on incorporating Gift Card as a nonprofit. And I just remember showing up to lunch the next day in a dining hall, and I just realized what I'd done the night before, and I buried my head in the table, and my friends were all laughing, and they were like, "So you did what?" I was like, "I made a nonprofit. Like, what's it gonna be?" It's like issuing debit cards. And like, do you know how to issue debit cards? And I just burst out laughing because no, I didn't. The next step was building a team. And one thing that I think is so important is that nobody ever interviewed for Gift Card. The people on the team are the people who I'd bump into at network events, the people who I'd bump into in classes, the people who I knew really well, the people that got most excited about the idea, whose eyes lit up talking about it, and who cared deeply about helping people facing homelessness. Those are the people that were always just invited to Gift Card. And we really did make up quite the family. We really do make up quite the family. We're still around. um, I see when you innovate, one of the first common questions you get asked is, why has no one ever done this before? And being an absolute amateur back then, I always assumed that it was just because I was the first one to come up with this idea, that nobody had ever thought about just digital giving to people facing homelessness. And I was just some new, like, I don't know, Da Vinci that had come up with it. Da Vinci? Right? Da Vinci's the inventor. Anyway, uh, yeah, he is. Um, but the truth is that there was a forest of obstacles waiting just beyond the horizon that we had no idea we were walking into. Because at its very essence, Gift Card needed the powers of a bank, right? Like we needed to be able to issue debit cards. We needed to be able to transfer money. We needed to be able to create credit scores, incentivize savings. We needed a nonprofit bank, which is quite the juxtaposition. So here's a quick question. It's rhetorical because there's a lot of you, but assume I had 3 bank meetings a week with different banks that were potential like backers of Gift Card. How many, and we're waiting for an offer to say like, we will issue for you for X amount. How many weeks do you think it's going to take for Gift Card to get a banking offer at 3 meetings a week? Think about it for a second. Okay. It took 1.5 years. It took 78 weeks, roughly 234 conversations at that rate. It honestly got to the point where memes were made about it. Shout out to Amanda Briss for this one, but we did kind of look like clowns. It was brutal. Those first few hundred conversations went nowhere. As soon as people heard I was in college, the call would be over. Others would laugh about how I had zero experience in banking and couldn't comprehend banking law, which honestly I couldn't. People would say KYC and I would look completely stunned. Some people even flat out said that just the idea itself was plain impossible. That even though we can give debit cards to normal citizens, we can't give this plastic card to a homeless person just on the basis that they don't have an address. For 78 weeks, we lived with guilt. For 78 weeks, each person in our team of then 11 people, we were meeting every week 78 times with nothing to report. Just 78 meetings of nothing. And each time we came with bold new plans that would again be shut down again and again and again. It was 78 weeks of failure. It was 78 weeks of seeing a homeless person in the street and feeling genuine guilt for not being able to have our cards out. And when that first offer came, when 1.5 years later, 78 weeks later, we finally got an offer, this is how much they asked us to pay them. The bank asked us to pay $750,000. Us, a nonprofit run by college kids with part-time jobs, $750,000 to issue these cards, which is fine because gift card totally had a lot of money, right? No, we had $2,400 raised through GoFundMe's and personal savings and a 10% like promotion at a pizza shop where we bought most of the pizza. And so if we do the math, that's roughly a $747,600 deficit to issuing our card. To be quite honest, at this point, it amazes me that Gift Card didn't give up. But with every meeting that we had with these banks, we started figuring out what sounded good and what sounded horrible. We started figuring out what banks liked to hear and what terrified them. We were able to package our case better and better and better each time. And so the next offer that came was $300,000. And the one after that was $100,000. Suddenly we had a $50,000 offer. Eventually, we were just getting the confidence that we know what we would bring to the table. And we'd start showing up and saying, hi, like we are we are gift spoiler we are gift card, and this is what we will do for your bank and how we will help uplift people through you. And eventually the final offer we got was $1,000. We were failures for 2 whole years, but we continued going into these meetings embracing failure again and again and again until finally we'd done the impossible. We'd made banking the homeless something we could now easily afford with our $2,400. You see, there are far too few of the too broke, too young, and too inexperienced in the world. Really, we need more young founders. We need more young women founders, and we need more young founders. With that story, I'd like to give you my most important takeaways after 3 years of student entrepreneurship in GiveCard and in my other for-profit ventures that I just didn't go into today. The first is that you should start something that you would still want to run 7 years from now. If you can tell from the gift card story, expectations are always inflated and it always takes longer than you think it's going to take. And if you don't genuinely care about something, if we at Gift Card didn't care about this thing, to be able to do nothing for 2 years and just genuinely persist, like it would have just been dead in the water and a waste of 2 years. So make sure you start something that you actually want to be doing 7 years from now. That's really important. The second is to teach yourself how to code, which is obviously easier said than done. But in all the startups I've talked to and I've advised and I've helped get off the ground, usually the reason people fail is because they pay someone in another part of the world to build their company, or they hire someone that's not as aligned to what they're doing that builds it for them. And I really do have to say, even if it's going to take you 2 years to build something that would take someone else 2 weeks, I think it's worth teaching yourself how to code. It's just the skill and the confidence that comes with being able to design and build your own vision is really important. I do have to say, like, really, I cannot recommend this enough. Build a team of good people, not experienced people. Experience is amazing, but when it comes to you being a student founder, being young and trying to start something fresh, none of us really have experience anyway. And so don't look at people's resumes, just realize that good people stick. Not a single person in Gift Card left in those first 2 years because they all cared way, way too much about what we were doing. And I think it wouldn't have been the same case if Gift Card interviewed and took resumes. And finally, nobody actually cares about what you can't finish. They care about what you can start. I felt the social pressure and I felt socially like a failure having gone 2 years without Gift Card being anything, especially after telling like news reporters and fellow students and my Instagram followers all about like this thing I'm trying to do, and then going 2 years without any significant impact being made. But I'm coming to realize that nobody actually cares that Gift Card hasn't launched yet. Like, sure, it sucks and it's not ideal, but the inspiration came with starting Gift Card, and people are still supportive about the fact that this happened. And you're going to feel the same way if you start something. People care about what you start, not what you finish. And so go, start nonprofits with no money, rattle the titans, rewrite century-old conventions, and destroy the patriarchy. And remember, fail fast and fail gloriously. Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone.
Wow. Thank you so much, Lurein. I just loved all of that. And I hope some of you guys are inspired and see that anyone can start something and dream big. And it just has me jazzed up on a Friday morning. So thank you so much, Lorraine.